Good evening. This is a recap of the work that we did on Tuesday before Snowmageddon, as they're deeming it. I'm going to walk through the order of operations in a video. It'll probably take me 10 to 15 minutes to walk through the whole front side of the page. Remember, the back side of this is your riddle, but the riddle is correct on Schoology, so make sure you get that submitted so that you get credit for your e-learning days. I am going to first walk through GEMDAS, which is a newer version of PEMDAS, where we used to say, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Now it is Grandma excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So we're going to write that mnemonic device here. Grandma excuse my dear Aunt Sally. And the way this works is we are now looking at grouping, not just parentheses. We have exponents, which we have already learned about in this unit. We have multiply. We have, nope, that is not right. Let's try that again. Divide. Tried to do my D too early for divide. Add and subtract. Okay. Now the one thing I will note is that multiply and divide is an or, whichever one comes first from right to left. We'll talk about that again in a second. Same thing with add and subtract. It is an or from left to right. So it doesn't matter what order they're in. If subtraction comes first, you do it first. If divide comes first, you do it first. But we will walk through a little bit closer as to how that looks in the example above. So this is your mnemonic device. Grandma excuse my dear Aunt Sally, or GEMDAS, which we announce it, that we talk about it in class that way. Grouping, exponent, multiply or divide from left to right. Add, subtract, it's another or from left to right. And it says always work left to right. Okay? Now, when we talk about grouping, I want to take a little sidebar and look at grouping symbols. Now, there are more than this. We also have things like absolute value brackets. We also have things like invisible math, where there's like division, where you have to do the numerator or denominator prior to doing the division. We're going to get into some of that later, but for now, I just want to talk about the ones that you can see. So in order, we have the first one, which is parentheses. This is where we used to use PEMDAS with the please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. This is what you're commonly known as. This is considered the parent. This is the biggest one. You always do it first. You then have brackets. We call it brother, it's second in command. And then we have braces, that's third. Most of the time when you see these, they are going to be within each other. It might look something like this. And I'll just say 7 minus 6 plus 4, and then you'd have the brackets on the outside. A lot of times that's what it looks like. And you obviously have to do the parentheses before you can do the brackets, because without doing this first, you can't do this operation. And yes, I do realize this would end up being a negative output, but we haven't covered negative numbers. I just wanted you to see what it looks like. Same thing with these. I will be honest, rarely do we see these like this. Most of the time when they're separate, you're just going to see parentheses multiple times, and you again work from left to right. But it's good to know if they're like this, we will start with our parentheses first, just as it instructed for when we do see them, okay? So with that said, now that we know our order for our grouping, we know what each one means, we're going to go through each step individually as we solve this. So inside of grouping, we have 3 options. We'll start with our parent. So 9 minus 4 equals 5. We don't need the parentheses anymore, so we're going to bring down everything. We're not going to change anything that we're not working with, so we did this one first. Now we can go to our brackets, which is 6 minus 2, which equals 4, and we've already brought everything else down. So I just worked from here to here. I realized that's right to left, and the reason I did that is because we had to go with our parent first. Parent is first in order, okay? Now, I like to put them in rows so we can see what we did. These 2 went to there. These 2 went to there. All right. I'm going to do another color to switch the row just to make it a little easier to see. I put the underline to kind of separate it. So we've already done our grouping. We'll check that off. That's all good. Okay. But now we have to look at exponent. And this is where I like the different colors. So we know the next row is going to work with this. We're going to work with our exponent, which is in orange. Okay. And I guess I probably should have boxed in my two groupings. So let me do that real quick. I'm going to go back. If you need to identify what they are, there's your two groupings, okay? That's the blue row. Now we're going to be working on what I'm going to call the orange row, which is our exponents. We're not going to mess with 4. There's nothing to be done there, so we're going to go ahead and bring that down. I want to bring my plus 10 down and my divide by 5, and then we just have to address this. Everything else is just coming down. It's just bringing it to the next row, so that we have it where we need it when it's time to address or take care of that step, okay? Now, we know, and we can put it in parentheses, we know that this also looks like this, okay? Because it's 3 times 3, 2 times, 3 and 3. So this number right here addresses how many times you write the 3. We also know that this equals 9. Okay, so there is our new problem. It is 4 times 9 plus 10 divided by 5. And I'm going to rewrite that just because I put that in. I'm going to change the dots just because I feel like they make things less messy. Plus 10 divided by 5. Okay, so here is our new equation, or our new expression, excuse me. And again, this is considered a numeric expression because everything is numbers. Remember that. We don't get into algebraic expressions until we start bringing variables in. Again, variables are numeric placeholders, which are letters. Most common ones are X and Y, but it can be any variable letter except for the letter O because it looks too much like 0. Just another quick reminder of what can and can't be in there as we're going through. So our exponents are done. So this is where it gets a little iffy. Over here you can see OR. I've put the OR in right here. I put the OR in right here because both of them have it. What this means is that we're going to do multiply and divide. So multiply and divide from left to right, okay? In this case, we have this here. I'm going to put parentheses around it so we can show it, okay? And then we have another one here because we're not dealing with that, so we're just going to bring our plus sign down, okay? Plus sign just comes down. We're not messing with any addition or subtraction in this step. We have our multiplication, we have our division, and the numbers around are what we call terms. All of these throughout here where they're separated by operations, add, subtract, multiply, divide, those are terms. These are all constants, constant meaning they're numbers, and they do not change. Unlike variables, which, like the root word vary, can adjust, can change. It depends on the circumstances. So now we're going to work from left to right. In this case, multiplication does come first and division comes second, but these could be flip-flopped and we would still do the first group first and we'd work our way that way. So first we're going to do 4 times 9, which is going to be 36. And then we're going to do 10 divided by 5, which is going to give us a 2. Okay, so now our multiply divide step as a whole, we're going to do a big check mark there because it covers both of them. I'm going to do it over here so you can see it really well. Okay, then we're going to go to our add and subtract, and I'm going to switch over to a red pen. All right, let's do my green underline, trying to stay consistent here. So there's where we brought down our answers. And now we are going to just do this part right here. We're going to have that, and I know I kind of did it all together, bringing it down. So those go there. Again, your 9 that's here went right there. Just trying to show where everything landed as we brought them down, okay? And now we have our add and subtract step, which in this case we only have add, but it would be add and subtract, but it would be left to right again, just like you read a book, okay, just like reading. It's going to be 36 plus 2. 36 plus 2, we could do it the long way for those that need to see it, plus 2. 2 plus 6 is 8, and we can bring down our 3, so the final answer is 38, okay? So we took it to the side for what I call side math, just sidebarred the math so that we could see it, put an arrow, but everything should be in rows, and you don't have to do all the extra notations. I wanted you to see where everything was going. Really, if you can do like this, and they're row by row by row, and I can follow it, and then you circle your final answer, that's what I want. But is the answer what I'm looking for? I mean, I want to see that you got the right answer, but I'm more interested in this part. I want to see this part. And in rows is the easiest way to keep it clean. If you're going all over the place to Sunday trying to show that you work, it's hard to follow, and it's hard for me to find the step that you missed. Then I can't help you. But that's how we do that, okay? And again, grouping, it could also be brackets. It could be braces. We will get into what we call absolute values. They look like that. And you can also have something like this where you have 2 plus 9, which would equal 11 divided by, divided by 2, which really doesn't come out smoothly. But this is called invisible math of grouping because you have to handle this part first before you can divide, because this is a division line. We now know that fraction lines are also division lines. Fractions are just unfinished division problems. So I want to make sure that you remember that there's not always going to be parentheses. You have to know that. These are all those little quirky things. Remember in exponents that this number tells you how many times. So if you've got x to the third or x cubed, because that means cubed, it would be x times x times x, okay? It's not going to be x times 3. That would be a coefficient, not an exponent, that thing that goes in front of it, okay? Again, multiply or divide, it doesn't matter. It could be 2 times 7 divided by 4, and you would do this first and then that. You could do 7 divided by 7 minus, let's say times 8. And you would still, even if the parentheses weren't here, even if they just wrote it this way, okay, it would act just like that, okay? If they wrote this, 2 times 7 divided by 4, it would act like that, okay? Because we're going from left to right on both of them, okay? Doesn't matter if division's first or if multiplication's first, okay? It is always going to be that left to right process that we talked about, okay? Same thing with add or subtract. It could be 2 plus 2 minus 8, or it could be 8 minus 4 plus 2. Doesn't matter which way we do it. We still go from left to right. And you would have to do the addition part first or the subtraction part first. Okay? So that is how that works. I hope that helps.